Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the shower. You know the drill. If you don't know what we're talking about, you probably didn't watch last week's video, so go watch it. But basically,
watch it.
Oh, you're doing the ad-libs
I'm
now.
ad-libbing, yeah.
Again, you won't get the joke unless you saw the last episode.
Exactly.
Wait, you were supposed to
Episode.
Yeah, there it is. But so last week's episode and this week's episode were supposed to be one
episode. Sorry, I'm excited.
Supposed to be one, but we've decided to split them in two because there are a lot of topics covered. So that's why last week's ending was abrupt, and the beginning of this one will be abrupt. But
Abrupt.
Okay, we need to stop this forever. But anywho, enjoy this week's episode. Thank you for, what is it called? Putting up with it. I don't know. There's a word for it, but like
words.
But enjoy this episode, and sorry about the abrupt start. Enjoy the epi.
Peace.
Well, not
To go back to what you were saying earlier, is it the intent or is it the result that is important? So you were saying, if someone helps someone and their intent is to get social capital, but the result is that they help that person. Like the people who go on the medical missions, they go to a different country, they take a bunch of, they volunteerism, that type of thing. Is that still good?
Camera's dead, so we'll just continue audio.
Okay. So, people who do that, they take a bunch of pictures and they post it on social media.
Sit back.
Yeah. Don't have to keep touching my jaw. My spandex and
no, put it back on.
Oh, sorry.
Please proceed.
But yeah, so intent versus results. So this is something that I also question, is like when someone goes on those medical missions and does these things, like builds a thing or whatever, they give whatever. They give their time and they post it on social media and they come back.
They build
and
a fourth of a house.
Exactly. They build a fourth of a house that like is structurally not sound.
Unsafe.
Unsafe.
Yeah.
But they do it, and the main reason probably is for them to get that clout. But if they
The scientific term, do not laugh.
clout,
Yeah,
it's still
sorry,
it is a proper term.
It is
so,
in the dictionary.
And when
As of 2020.
as of 2020,
No,
and
it's an old word. It's
4 days.
It's from like the 1900s. It's an old word.
but if the result ends up helping people,
yeah.
is that still a thing that they should do? Like if someone's like, I want to go to help people, but because I want to put it on social media, should they still go do that?
Of course.
Let me tell you what I think. I think that if the job is getting done, I think based on our discussion, we all agree that the intent, whether consciously or subconsciously, is selfish, no matter what. Based on this discussion.
But there's degrees.
There is degrees that like maybe it's
We all
like,
have one.
At least one. Well, at the most one.
Oh, he has two.
Oh,
Yeah.
double degree.
But what I was going to say is that the intent is always going to be kind of selfish. We spoke about this and I said it. People always say, like, for example, when asked in an interview, why do you want to do this career or whatever, people will be like, oh, because I want to care for people. Or like, I love caring for people. I told you that I don't think that's ever the true answer. The answer is I find reward in caring for people. And that should be how people term it, so that they're aware that like your actions all are based on how you feel you get reward. So if I find reward in caring for others, I'll feel it. So going back to the thing is there's always going to be a reward. So if the job's getting done, like that's always going to be the deep intent. So if it's getting done, it's getting done. My problem with volunteerism completely side is that they do it wrong.
It's
like,
Band-Aid solutions.
they just
The unsafe house.
the country agrees so that those people come with their money and their utilities and their resources, because they were never gonna like send the resources unless they were coming along. Kind of like build the house or whatever and then leave. The country has the resources in place now they build it themselves properly. So my problem is that it's inefficient. Like, just send the resources, be efficient. But if volunteerism involved going there and doing it right and not being a Band-Aid solution, and people were like doing it for social capital and all that, sure, do it. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants a benefit. If that's the benefit they get out of it. Ideal situation is everyone wins. In a situation where it's win-win, there's potential for longevity. If there's something that seems so far-stretched in a sense like this makes no sense for this person, why are they going to do it? It probably won't persist because they'll be like, I'm not getting anything out of it, whether that be deep pleasure or like superficial pleasure.
I think I think you guys talked really well on like the bad sides of volunteerism, and I think one of the ones that I always like to mention when people bring up this topic is the one of the psychological harm as well, right? So when you're going into these areas that need help, there's usually often children either estranged from their parents, right? And so when volunteers come in, volunteers get attached to these kids and the kids get attached to them, and then they leave. Right? So you're putting this kid through a constant cycle of attachment, detachment, and they don't understand the ideas or aren't able to form lasting relationships, and they start to feel abandonment, right? So anytime they get attached, there's abandonment. I think that's also a bad side of volunteerism that I always like to bring up is that's not, you don't want to perpetuate that problem, right? So there's structural problems that you guys mentioned. There's also psychological problems that kids can have when people come and leave, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in my idea, I would never do a volunteerism trip personally. I think if I wanted to do that, anything I try to do, if it's something of that nature, I try not to gain social capital from it. So I probably wouldn't even, I'd tell maybe my close friends, just tell them about the experience and encourage them to go. But I don't think I'd post it on social media. Mm-hmm. If someone does, that's not wrong. That's their values and what they choose to do. I wouldn't shame or harm them.
What if the result of you posting it causes other people to want to do it as well?
Yeah, and I think
the result becomes positive and like perpetuates positivity and perpetuates this positive kind of trend. Mm-hmm. So maybe your intent, whatever your intent was, like going back to intent versus result. Mm-hmm. What if the result is a good result? Even if your intent was social capital or whatever,
And so I think that's a fair point. What happens if I by putting it on social media, we have this connectiveness that will benefit everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of people are doing that, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people are jumping on that. Like I'm, part of my reason for posting this is to raise awareness.
Save the cedar, bro.
Sorry.
It's on the table.
Yeah, holy, it's actually pine.
Yeah.
So.
And so like I was saying, I think a lot of people are saying like, I'm posting this to raise awareness. And I think you can use that platform. I choose a different avenue, which is going to people I know and care and trust and talking to them and having a conversation. I think that's more impactful than just making a post and a picture.
Why not both?
You could do both, but I prefer to do the second one, mainly because I can guide the person to the right resources or the right path or the right organization that I've thoroughly looked into versus someone seeing the post and saying, oh, I want to do something like this, going and trying to find it on maybe a platform that I've used, and being like, oh, it's booked up, I'm going to use something else, right? Or it could cause them to be, I want to do something similar. I know this organization that does something similar, but you don't know where the finances are going. So when I advise somebody, I want to do it in a way that's like bulletproof.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think what you're both discussing is just quality over quantity. You'll never reach the same amount of people as you would over a social media platform, but you'll get people to use the right resources, in your opinion, if you like speak to them in person. I appreciate your input on the volunteerism because I'd never thought of the psychological thing, so that was definitely like a new insight. But I want to go back to the concept of like the selfish internal reward or whatever.
Can I make a comment on your thing and you can reply to it?
For sure.
Just because something that you were saying earlier. So like the different, the intent versus result thing, going back, what you were talking about earlier. So whether or not someone is doing something for, if it ends up helping that person, then it ends up helping that person is what we're talking about. But like, say you have a healthcare provider who is doing it for the clout versus a healthcare provider who's doing it because they find reward in helping people. And so they're both kind of doing the job for different reasons. They're both selfish reasons. But one selfish reason may result in them giving better care than the other selfish reason.
The clout.
The clout reason would be the worst, not the worst, like not as good healthcare because the other person truly finds when people are taken care of properly and well to be rewarding versus, I'm a doctor, like I'm doing this to, get
this is a perfect segue to what I wanted to talk about. But I'll talk about, like, I'll bridge into that topic that I want to discuss while answering your question, because that's exactly what, so, like, thank you for asking that.
You're sick.
You're sick. But
That sounds like a big task. I don't know if you can do it, but go ahead.
my concept was going to be the idea of, okay, the job's getting done, but what should you strive for? Like, with this awareness that you are being selfish no matter what, what should you strive for? Having those extrinsic or intrinsic rewards. So if someone's doing it for the clout, if clout is so important to you, you'd want to be the best at it. You'd want the best results just because that's associated with your clout. So that doctor, like, I remember talking to someone about it, and like, straight up, someone asked me, would you want that person to be your healthcare provider in the future? I was like, honestly, they're so obsessed with like being the best to the point that I trust that because of how obsessed they were, they'd not stop until they're the best. I'd be like, do it up. Like, I would trust them with my like surgery or whatever. However, in terms of like numbers and consistency or whatever, if the reward you get out of an action is intrinsic versus extrinsic, for example, we were talking about social capital. Social capital relies on society reacting the way you expected them to react. However, what if you expected wrong? So then you end up not getting the reward out of it, and you're like, damn it, there was no point of doing that. Next time, you don't do it. However, if, like, for example, going to the same healthcare example, that person relies on clout, aka social capital, and like, no one cares. Okay, you're awesome at the surgery, no one cares. That's when your quality of care starts going down, because you're like, it doesn't matter if I'm not getting that social capital that I expected. However, that doctor that says, I am a doctor because I find reward in caring for others, that person, think of the terming itself. I find reward in caring for others. The action that yields reward is done by self. No other person can affect that. So no matter how you react, if I do my best to care for you, but like it's not that important to you, or like we don't yield the results, that won't affect me getting the reward. So I'm going to have that constant positive reinforcement to care for you. So long term, having that intrinsic reward is going to lead to like consistency, and there's no like other variables that could affect that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so I think that no matter what, if the result is positive, the action is positive, it doesn't matter because the intent is selfish. However, long term, if you want to see that consistency of that action, the like pathway that leads to the reward has to be something intrinsic, affected by the least amount of variables.
I love that.
You know what's interesting? That's the moral of the movie Patch Adams.
What's that?
With Robin Williams. So it's big. It's like a 2-hour movie, but the summary is he's like a young doctor and he learns like, if you try to treat the disease, you win or lose, but if you treat the patient, regardless of the result, you'll win every time.
Dude.
So like,
dude, that's your new favorite quote, okay?
Please make that your favorite quote, because I did not like that.
But that's not kind of like what you're saying.
Yes.
Like if you have a value that correlates with the action more internally, then no matter what other people think, what happens in that patient's prognosis, if you knew you did a good job and treated them with respect, like you're always getting your points. You know, your points is in you're always feeling good about yourself.
You get that positive reinforcement, so you repeat.
It's coming from inside.
You repeat. However, if you rely on like the disease, like at the end of the day, you can't make sure that the disease is cured. So if it doesn't cure, there's no positive reinforcement.
Exactly.
So the frequency of the behavior will decrease. I love this conversation because we're really like tackling and like connecting many different things. For example, we've brought intrinsic, extrinsic motivators and reward into this, and tied it into the basic idea of like selfishness, because we are all selfish. I want to like, if you guys
yourself, man.
That's a little selfish for you to say.
But this is the thing.
You're right.
Wait, no, we ended the
Speaking
bias.
for everyone.
Guys, no, we ended this.
Oh, right, that's right, yeah.
Bias is
But
selfish,
you know what I
this is
mean? This is
sober.
what we were talking about. And like, Jay was joking about it, that like, hey, we're kind of like ending the stigma of selfishness. But like we kind of are. We're making you like not exactly. But I'm saying that like it's
this
done.
is Sharif's
It's over.
I think it's different. I think we're ending the.
I think we're having a conversation about it.
I think we're increasing awareness.
We're ending.
We're into that on the last podcast.
We're ending the putting altruism on a pedestal.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what more of it is.
Wait,
We're
actually,
increasing.
We're having a conversation. Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're having a conversation about it.
I think we're having a conversation that you should be aware that you do seek reward in every action you do. So be aware of that, so that whether you can realize whether that reward pathway is an intrinsic or extrinsic one, and use that wisely.
And focus on intrinsic reward versus extrinsic.
Exactly,
right?
for consistency.
That's for anything. That's for like working out.
Anything.
Like,
So social
motivate
media
someone,
in general is the extrinsic reward, right? It's having people like or share your comments.
Don't forget to comment.
Yeah, and don't forget to comment or subscribe to Shower Thoughts.
Yeah, please like, subscribe, share.
I swear to God, if you guys don't, we'll stop making it.
This is the only reason we do this.
We say strive for intrinsic rewards, but we're not there yet.
We're striving. We haven't strove.
Yeah.
We're still striving.
But that goes back to like
Drive.
motivation versus drive.
Drive wood.
Drive with like because sometimes you have like let's say this is the first podcast of 2020 and what recently passed was New Year's and a lot of people are making New Year's resolutions,
Which you should do.
you shouldn't do.
You should not.
Because that's a lot of motivation.
It's extrinsic motivation, and that only lasts during that one moment of
That
January,
one day.
that one day, sometimes 1 week, but if you're lucky, a month. Right,
Lucky.
but it doesn't last. It's not intrinsic. So everything you do should be intrinsic.
Yeah, and I think one of the even because we're all like going to the gym, one of the things.
Well,
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, well, we try to, right?
Yeah.
2020, clear vision, try to get to the
2020
gym. Yeah.
2020.
One of the things people I often hear is like,
2020
tunnel vision. Yeah.
It's absolutely tunnel vision. Kodak Black, French Montana, switch it up.
Actually, don't, because then we'll get copyright.
That's
True, yeah. Go ahead.
That's not how it works. Only just don't let Jay get to you. Please proceed.
I was thinking one of the most common things I hear about people going to the gym is like, I want to get look better. I want to get cut. I want to get lean, or I want to build muscle or lose weight or whatever. And it's usually for looks, right? Which is extrinsic stuff, versus saying I want to get to the gym because it's gonna improve my overall well-being, mental health, right? So, for me, when I go to the gym, I'm like, I actually hate going to the gym. Which is like, I don't like getting up in the morning, going to the gym. I just don't like it.
No
right?
one does.
Yeah, I don't like it, right? But I know that the value or how I feel after the gym, that I'll feel better about myself, that my body will be healthier, and that my mind will be better. That's what motivates me, because I want long-term health, right? Versus I just want to look good for others. Mm-hmm. So this is something I'm doing for myself, right? Intrinsically. Versus extrinsic would be like, I want a good appearance so other people can look at me and go, oh wow,
you're shredded,
right? Or go crazy,
dude,
right?
I would grade Parmesan cheese off your oblique.
Okay.
Holy. But what if that extrinsic reward of having a nice body gives you an intrinsic reward of saying, now I feel good about how I look. It makes me feel more confident. I don't care how, I'm gonna wear a shirt over my 8-pack.
I'm gonna put the Ferrari in the garage.
Exactly, the Ferrari's in the garage. No one can see it, but I know I have it, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, get the 6-pack. Just don't post it.
Well, I think
look at yourself and be like, wow, I got a 6-pack.
Well,
because you're doing it for yourself then, right? You're not doing it to show off.
Well, we discussed this in the last podcast that you should strive to have intrinsic reward, and that's the constant fire that's burning. However, every now and then you need that extra boost, which is extrinsic reward. Mm-hmm. So the two are hand in hand, and if you look at most of the models for intrinsic extrinsic reward, it's on a continuum. Mm-hmm. So there will be days where you just need that push. There's no consistency. Some days you need to add fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I personally think that, and like the continuum says that some of the models say that you start with extrinsic reward
And then
you eventually work your way up to like falling in love with it. When I jokingly said no one likes working out in the morning, that's a lie, because like at times when I was like consistently working out in the morning,
Yeah.
I loved the idea that like I had that control over my life. So I think about it, I'm like, I guess it was intrinsic at the time.
Yeah.
That's gone now that I'm not consistent with it. But like I said, it changes, and that's like perfect example that like thank you for bringing that up. But you drift in out of intrinsic, extrinsic. But like tying it to today's talk, you should be aware. Like now, constantly think like, oh, I'm such a nice person, I do this. Go like, no, I do this because there's something in it for me. Because we're all selfish at the end of the day, which isn't wrong. So what is the reward that I get out of it? And then really dig deep and figure out, is this an intrinsic or extrinsic reward? And be aware of that, so that you know that like when you don't get the reward, it's because it was extrinsic. So you need to reframe your thoughts so that no matter what happens, you think this is a good action, and eventually like it just self-perpetuates because it becomes intrinsic. So you don't need external variables to promote that.
But I think the key there is you don't go down that thought process to like second guess your motivations. You do it to like find out your values.
Exactly.
Like,
Self-awareness.
you shouldn't be like, wait, why am I helping out this homeless person? Is it because I'm selfish? You should be like, oh, I'm helping out this homeless person because I care about X, Y, and Z. So now I know about that, and I know that about myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, I love that.
I agree. Because
I feel like you can use the same thought process and go somewhere negative with it too.
Fair.
So I'm saying we should be
'Cause
careful.
I think you said it way better than me.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
agree.
Saf.
Yeah, yours was really bad actually.
But
it-
that's
But you know what? You weren't looking for that extrinsic validation.
Exactly. As long as you felt good
let's
about
grow
it.
together. I'm cool with that.
Exactly. And that's what I was about to
Did
say.
I seem like the bigger person?
Yeah. I mean, physically too. Yeah.
Okay, well, relax.
Let
This
him
is
know.
a baggy
Even
sweater.
Even when the camera's off, let him know.
Well, they can't because
Okay, relax. Okay, I don't need this on a Friday night.
Saffron. Did you say saff?
he said
It is
so.
my
so
night. Today's my night.
Selfish. This
Wow.
is selfish in body.
And that's okay.
That
And
is
that is okay.
But what I'm saying is yes, that, you know, whether or not it's extrinsic or intrinsic, you become self-aware, which is good for you to become better or become more, introspective, and
Nice.
and that is a selfish thing because that's good for you, and that is okay. That is good.
That's
Because you need that. You need that to grow, to mature, to progress through life, to stay on that slope.
steep slope.
Steep slope,
Get it
man.
steeper and steeper.
Hopefully
Exactly.
not too steep.
Not
steep though.
steep.
Because then
Yeah,
I fall off.
because then you fall off the
Yeah.
slopes. Yeah.
Well, it starts becoming negative, non-steep. But we won't get into that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah. But anyways, we've been talking about it since the very first episode, how like the goal of everything at the end is self-awareness, because you can be more informed and make more informed decisions. Reframe your values. See, like, are these values, like, does this surprise me that these are my values? Is this who I want to be? Is this the image I have for myself? And you get to reflect on it. So, yes, what Jay said and what Saf expanded on is, next time you do something, ask yourself why you did it, because there's definitely a reward in it, and then figure out where that reward is coming from, what pathways that coming from, intrinsic, extrinsic, why you did it, and then you'll know something about yourself, what your values are, and then be like, is that a value that I would want for ideal Sharif, Saf, Oli, or Jay? You know what I mean? But I think this is a really good talk. I think I still want to talk about it. We didn't get into how this pans out in relationships when it's a two-way street.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, so I think.
Already that like this is. I think we should split this so far, because the beginning was more about selfishness and altruism. The second part was more about like extrinsic and intrinsic
That's also
motivation.
true.
So I think we'll split this, and then, we could keep going, or we could. Well, let's end it right here, and then we'll record another one
About
another
relationships.
time about relationships and selfishness. But before we do that, like just closing remarks from our special guest, Jay.
Oh!
Elise just blacklisted ever since he attacked the table.
He broke my table.
I talk with my hands.
I'm
I'm
actually-
Hassan
why do you
Minhaj.
have a
I
table
really,
in
I
the
wish, I
shower?
wish the camera was on to see when that happened.
Yeah.
Because
We could have done like
I
a
laughed.
table hit counter.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll count because
Well, this thing
they
broke.
heard it. The sound vibrates through here. It picks up into, it's fine.
you'll hear a.
Well, I admit, I started the video slamming, and then I saw the GoPro shake. I was like, ooh.
At least saw it too.
I
He
think-
kept on.
I think my final thoughts are about is sarcasm beneficial or negative?
Again, that's a whole nother topic.
Is
Yeah,
sarcasm
it's still a topic.
hidden truth?
Oh,
Always.
Yeah.
Why is it not
So
him?
why-
We're telling you to stop hitting the table.
We're just being nice about it
Violated.
by joking.
Also, I think I need to get new friends.
I like that you call us friends.
Yeah, appreciate
I think that's the nicest thing.
Vagrant. That's what it is.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Final thoughts. I think just to
Final shower thoughts.
final shower thoughts.
Yeah, there.
Trademark.
I think is always try to think about the other more, think about the self less, and really think about why you're doing certain things, and do self-reflection, journaling, sit down, ask your close friends and family what they think about you, how you can improve, what you're doing already that's well. And I think that could be a starting point for anyone who's trying to do self-reflection, is to gauge how other people view you and see you, and then think about how you view and see yourself and where that disconnect is, and start from there.
Damn.
Love that.
Gang.
Boom.
Jay, what you got? Say some stupid quote about all those who wander being lost or something.
Any analogies?
Well, I guess the one thing I could say is that this is very similar to the philosophical theory of psychological egoism, which is
He's always got something like
Oh,
that.
it's an encyclopedia. of randomness.
Give it to me.
Sure. Well, I think we've already defined it, but psychological egoism is a theory that all humans, for whatever action, be it seemingly altruistic or not, have like a selfish reason for doing it. So I guess what we're doing this whole podcast is saying how we think that is true, but not a bad thing at all, because you can turn that into a positive way.
So if you want to look into more of what we've been talking about, look
Yeah.
into psychological.
Look up psychology.
egoism.
I wrote an essay on it.
Yo, share the essay.
Yeah, share the essay.
Oh man, the essay is a
Spark notes.
master.
Jay will be coming out with a book shortly.
Saf will read that.
I will read it for 2 years
And then
straight.
talk about it in every episode, going, "Oh, I'm on a new page." But damn, we missed this.
Yes.
I missed this. I'm not joking. I came from my break, and I called Saf. I literally called you, and I was just like, "Man, I missed that. I missed that podcast. I miss you. I miss like just doing this, because like we naturally do it. Like you guys were with us last time. That's how this friendship is. Like, even with you guys, we just get together and we talk about this, and you just walk out feeling so good. That night, like, just for personal reasons, we won't get too into it, but, like, 2 people at this table were involved in, like, we're going to do things that they didn't really want to do, but talking about it, you reflect on it and go, like, what was my reason for wanting to do it? And then just decided that, nope. And that was me. I made a decision.
You're so cryptic and sharing at the same time.
Okay, between 4 to 6 of us divided by 2. Situation.
Ultimately, it was me.
Yeah, but like, it was me.
Basically, you have to look at the intent behind what you do.
Yeah.
That's important, and that's what you did, and that
I was being
changed the
dramatic,
decision.
though.
I know.
I
It was,
said-
No, you
who could it be?
Dramatic.
Oh, it was me.
I think you were being honest, because
Yes.
I
I just want them to know that, like, we do apply this. Like, it's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because I remember driving home after that drive,
Yeah.
and like immediately being like, I'm not just gonna talk about it and not do it, like
Yeah.
anything. This relates more to like when we talk about relationships and like the selfishness, and we'll talk about that on the next episode. But like, we like mean everything we say, and we apply it to our lives, or try to.
Try to.
Because this is meaningful, and there's a reason we do it. And honestly, I find this intrinsic. I'm totally fine with the idea that like we don't have that many viewers. The only reason it makes me sad is like if it makes me sad, is that like other people could benefit out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those 3 people, you know.
Yeah,
They stood by us from the start.
They're growing.
Yeah. They're learning.
They're
lots.
slow pellets, Steve.
Exactly.
Yeah, but other than that, good episode. Nice to see you guys in the shower. Next time, shampoo's
Appreciate
on you.
Yes.
Please like, subscribe, share.
Yes,
all the drill.
We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts.
MySpace,
Friendster,
Space.
Napster. Not your space.
TikTok.
We'll be on TikTok soon enough. Don't worry.
We're not. Don't go looking.
No.
Because people will. TikTok is popular.
TikTok would blow up though if we started. No, it wouldn't actually.
No.
Let's hold that.
We're too woke for TikTok.
Too woke.
Yeah.
Are we
But
woke?
I'm not sleeping.
I'm about to sleep.
All right. So please.
Just hit him with the piece. Give him a piece. Just say
Deuces.
it.
Deuces.
A pie?
What's the?
What is it? You always have something you say at the end. Just say it.
What I just said. We're on Spotify. We're on all of these things.
Oh, and then this is the part I go like, I did it too early.
You did it too early.
Shampoo's on you guys. See you next time.
All right.